Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Before I even get started on the video topic, I want to say something that I usually say at the end of my videos, but I'm afraid that a lot of people miss this. If you like this video, please press the thumbs up button, and I ask that you would share this video. YouTube has been playing games with my channel. It has really had some negative effects on it recently, so I would appreciate that if you get anything at all out of this video, to just like it and share it. So let's move on. So there's something that has really been worrying me quite a bit recently, and it's nothing that I know 100% is going to happen, although I can definitely see it coming to fruition the way things are going. And that is this. I think there is a good chance that distance learning will be the end of homeschooling. I remember when this whole school shutdown started back in March and kids were having to be home with their parents, and I remember that I was hopeful at first. I was thinking, finally, families are going to get to be together. And even though people started saying we're all homeschoolers now, I did go along with that for a little while because I was so excited to see that kids were where I really think that most of them should be, at home with their families. But as time went on, and as I started, and when the schools actually started doing distance learning, because at first a lot of the kids were just out of school and they really weren't doing anything. But now that distance learning is in place, what I'm seeing happening is that distance learning and homeschooling are being confused quite a bit. And I think that in many cases it's happening intentionally. Maybe not by everyone, but for example, the news media keeps referring to distance learning as homeschooling. They will, interview homeschooling families, and then you read the article and you find out that it's actually distance learning. Or they will, post an article about funny tweets that they saw homeschooling parents say. And you think, oh, wow, they're going to highlight homeschoolers, and you click on it. Nope, they're talking about distance learning parents. And, even if when I was looking for thumbnails for videos recently, before when I would type in homeschool or homeschooling, like on Pixabay or Pexels, that's where I usually get my thumbnails, the photos for my thumbnails. If I would have typed in homeschooling and homeschool last year at this time, nothing would have likely shown up, maybe one or two pictures. Now though, if you type in homeschool or homeschooling, you will get a lot of pictures. And I would say 95% of them are of children sitting in front of a computer screen. So they are clearly showing distance learning and not homeschooling. So a lot of people think that it's being picky to keep pointing out that distance learning is not homeschooling. But the difference is really, really important, because not only is the method itself different, but just the repercussions of what is going to come out of it is important. Because with homeschooling, it has been proven that homeschooling is a successful method of education. Studies show that homeschooling families, homeschooled children, on average, outperform their peers who are in public school. But distance learning, on the other hand, has not been so successful. So what we have been seeing are lots of parents talking about how their kids are behind, they're not learning anything. We see articles about studies that have been showing that kids are really losing a lot of their learning. This distance learning isn't helping with them. And then on top of that, we have teachers, many of whom wanted the distance learning. I think that a lot of you will remember all of the teachers back when all of this was going on, when they weren't sure what was going to happen. This was like over the summer, and they were writing their own obituaries and sending them to the governor because they didn't want to do in-person learning, or they were taking trash bags and pretending that they were body bags outside of City Hall because they were trying to show what was going to happen to them if they had to do in-person learning. So a lot of the teachers who were pushing for online learning are now speaking out about how hard it is and how much of a failure it is and how it isn't working. All you need to do is read through the education topic on Twitter. It's very enlightening, because you will see teachers who are constantly talking again about how hard online schooling is, but they will talk about how draining it is, how they're suffering from depression because of it, and because of all of this anxiety that they have because of teaching online. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm glad my kids aren't in school, because I wouldn't want someone like that teaching my kids if they're feeling that way. But the fact remains is that this is what people see when they hear the word homeschooling now. I think that before, when people mentioned homeschoolers, they pictured weird kids who were in jumpers, who had big families, like mine, who were religious, who were sheltered from the outside world. But, thankfully, that stereotype has pretty much gone. But unfortunately, it has been replaced by distance learning, which is not homeschooling. And to be quite frank, I would rather take the other stereotype over the distance learning, because what is going to happen, I'm afraid, is that in the end, now let's remember, the government likes to have children in its schools, because I've mentioned several times that the schools are there to indoctrinate children into a set way of thinking, a way that is going to follow the status quo. Remember, the school system came about because they wanted to create obedient citizens. It had nothing to do with education. They wanted to create obedient factory workers, actually. And now it has just turned into obedient citizens. And you can see it happening as time goes on. So, and that's one thing that I thought to myself, wow, the government's actually shutting all of these schools down? I can't believe it, because I never thought that they would relinquish control over these kids so quickly, even though they are doing online school, a lot of these kids, and they are still, learning what the public school wants them to, but it is more easily seen now by parents what is going on. But I still kept thinking, they're really going to give up control? But now I see what's happening, because all we hear now is what a failure homeschooling is, because they've replaced the word distance learning in a lot of places with homeschooling. Homeschooling has failed so many students. Homeschooling is failing so many families. Parents cannot handle homeschooling. And then we have teachers going on about how hard it is to teach students that way, and how they are stressed out, and how they are just not able to get their lessons across adequately. So what is going to happen is everyone is going to forget that actual homeschooling exists, and they're going to forget about the success of actual homeschoolers, and they're going to start looking at what distance learning is. And the government will very quickly and very happily, I'm assuming, step in and say, well, you know what? I think that this experiment in homeschooling has proven that it just isn't working. If a professional like a teacher can't handle doing it, how is a parent going to do it? That's what I see happening. And I can always see the government saying, maybe it's time that we relook at these homeschool laws, because maybe it's just not working in the way that we thought it should be. Did you really think that they were going to just step down and let all of these people start homeschooling their children? In my heart of hearts, I would love for that to happen. I would love for there to be a huge boom, an explosion in homeschooling. I would love to see the vast majority of children homeschooled in our country. But unfortunately, that will bring about negative repercussions when we have a government who has used the school system to control its citizens for about 150 years now. It's something that we really need to be careful of. We need to watch carefully, read the news. And when you do hear people who are confusing the two terms, who are referring to distance learning as homeschooling, point it out. Don't worry about hurting someone's feelings. Don't worry about offending them, because it's the truth. They're not homeschooling. Homeschooling is something totally different from distance learning. When my kids, they do CTC math online, I would never say that my kids do distance learning for math just because it's on a computer. So that just the same way goes. If someone is sitting at home on a computer doing schoolwork from a teacher in a school district, that is not homeschooling. And it is okay to point that out. And I think that we really need to start being louder about that. Not rude, just pointing out, hey, you know what? But homeschooling really is something different. And that's why there are so many successful homeschoolers. And then point out the advantages of real homeschooling. Because if this line keeps getting blurred like this, I fear for what the future will bring. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disables my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.